Head over to losingmymind.com to check out our latest song, Genocide. Support our work. Now, onto the show. Let me pull up this story from the Washington Examiner. The View host compares Republican women to roaches voting for Raid. Quote, what's also surprising to me is the abortion issue. I read a poll just yesterday that white Republican suburban women are now going to vote Republican, she told her co-hosts. It's almost like roaches voting for Raid. She was interrupted by Alyssa Farah Griffin, who accused Hosted of insulting voters. When you have people who refuse to understand your position and then listen to Stephen Colbert to try and understand what your position is, and then he lies to them and says your position is fake and doesn't exist, how are you supposed to have a reasonable conversation to move this country forward when these ideological zealots outright refuse to even have a conversation?
Start your own show. That was my experience. If you don't like what they're saying about you, you got to start speaking for yourself publicly.
Right. And we've done that.
Yeah.
And now we can't expect the woman who is calling women roaches to want to sit down here and have a conversation about why she's wrong.
I would talk to her, but that statement was crazy. Can we play that short clip of her? I mean, it's basically anytime you start referring.
Effective message out. You had something you wanted to say.
Well, yeah, I would say if you're answering that part, which party's getting the message out, I would actually say the Republicans are, and I tend to vote independent and left control during a bad crime.
It's right after
should be saying that just cities.
Not an
Republican suburban women are now going to vote Republican.
Why?
It's almost like roaches voting for Raid, right?
And they'll clap.
They're voting. No, it's insulting to the voter.
They're voting against their own self-interest. Do they want to live in Gilead?
Okay.
She is so arrogant and hateful. Her immediate assumption is, do these women want to live in Gilead? They're voting against their own interests. We have a pro-life woman sitting here. Is voting pro-life against your interests?
Absolutely not. I don't know what in her mind makes her think that abortion is somehow good for women. I mean, even if you are a woman who's been through that, I would say almost every woman who's been in that situation is horrible. It's not something you want. It's not like, getting an ice cream cone or doing something fun. It's a very sad thing, and it's horrible.
Yeah, that leads to psychological and physical damage
yes,
that many people don't want to talk about.
Right,
Sorry,
have regrets over doing that and so on. But aside from that, this isn't something that is something that they look towards. So I think the fact that the left wants this to be their main issue for the midterms, they basically want it to be all about January 6th, our democracy being lost, and abortion. Those are like their two big things they want people to vote on. And it's like, maybe women actually want intact families. Maybe they actually want to be safe in their neighborhoods. They want men to be men. They want all these other things. They don't actually want abortion. Why don't we avoid that situation? I think most women would disagree with her and would not like being called roaches. Obviously, if she wants women to vote leftist in the midterms and they're watching this is not a way to attract them.
But I can certainly imagine there are many women who want to be able to get abortions whenever they want. Genuinely, deep within their souls, they just would love to get an abortion. I mean, Lena Dunham said she wished she had one, despite not actually having a kid. She was like, no, she just wished she got pregnant. That was kind of crazy. But to say that pro-life women who don't like abortion, who want to have babies and families, are voting against their interests for knowing exactly what they want is the epitome of arrogance and hatred. How about she actually let Farah speak? Is that her name? Alyssa.
Yeah,
what is it? Alyssa. Actually, let Alyssa speak and say, I genuinely don't understand why a Republican woman would vote against her interests. Can you explain it to me? And then she'd say, well, it's not against their interests, is it? They believe that these are babies and they don't want their lives ended. So they wouldn't get an abortion and they don't think it should be supported. Hey, it's that simple.
And perhaps these women voting think that it's in the best interest of the child to not kill them. I mean, we have to consider all the people in play. What about fathers? They often say, how do I have access to my child? Even in child custody things, they don't have any say. When it comes to abortion, they have no say. So I think that there's so much more to this than just, is this in her best interest? And I would say it's not in her best interest. It's not in the child's best interest. It's not in anyone's best interest in that entire family unit.
So what ends up happening with a lot of policies, there's a lot of, I think, really important and great things that came out of the feminist movement. I think that's everybody would agree. Like, women can vote. I know there's a lot of people who say repeal the 19th, but most people are like, no, we're cool with it. Although there are a lot of social issues that are happening now that people argue about. I think what you end up seeing with a lot of feminist stuff, however, is detrimental to women. So when you look at hookup culture, who does that benefit? Men, not women. Just plain as day. And mostly like wealthier, taller, more attractive dudes. They can fool around, do whatever they want with no responsibilities. Used to be that if a guy wanted to hook up with a chick and he did, you're getting married because she's getting pregnant. Now, who cares? Get an abortion. What was it? Was it Portnoy? Dave Portnoy was talking about this.
He was debating, I think, Andrew Tate on this issue.
And he was basically saying, like, if he gets a girl pregnant, he wants her to get rid of it,
Yeah.
That's way better for a guy who doesn't want to be responsible for anything. And it puts the burden on women who are now pregnant. So so then what ends up happening is you build a culture where women say, okay, then I should be able to just get rid of it. Sure, I get it. But the burden is still on the woman no matter what. It still benefits the man more if the man wants to be irresponsible.
And I think it's so sad that the left tries to act like a man giving you $500 to go to an abortion clinic is empowering. That's like similar to prostitution, basically saying, I'm going to give you money, so like, go do this.
No.
It's like
working for a mega multinational corporation and giving all of your energy and life towards them is empowering, but supporting your family isn't.
I mean, that's another big lie that the left has sold women, basically, that you'll be happy if you spend all your time in a cubicle. There was an article that came out saying the most unhappy women are women who are single in their 40s, who don't have any children and work all the time. And it's like, big shock. Yeah, because I mean, you're told in your 20s, work all the time. And I totally get that. But at a certain point, there has to be more to life than that. And eventually women say, oh, I want kids, I want a family. Then they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so old. What do I do now? And that's why all of these alternate fertility things are exploding. And it's very unnatural. But needless to say, it's like, I think things need to go back to a more natural sense of the two genders. Now, that's obviously going to be very upsetting to the left, but conservative women are the happiest. Women who get married, have children, have a stable relationship, it might be tough, but working things through, I think they're much happier.
That's a fact. There's numerous studies that show conservative women, married women tend to have higher levels of happiness. And liberal women tend to have the highest levels of mental illness. So for whatever reason, I don't know, but there's LexisNexis data. There's the data scientists who have pointed this all out. I don't see. I think a lot of the left stuff is going too far. I think there's a lot of good things in it that we're all like, okay, we believe in like classical liberal values, free speech, innocent until proven guilty, and everyone should have the right to vote. Our society changes as the population grows larger. But then you get to the point where it's like the state can take your children. Marriage is basically voided out by no-fault divorce. There's no point in having a marriage. So here's another thing they lied about when it came to us, is we had a conversation about no-fault divorce. We were very critical of it. They falsely quoted Ian as Seamus.
I'll never forgive you for that.
That was funny.
Seamus.
Who was it? Was it Jezebel?
Yeah.
And but the issue with no-fault divorce is that when you say that you can get divorced for no reason, then you're basically saying marriage no longer exists. Because marriage was the contract by which you could not break till death do us part. Mm-hmm. And they were like, nah, you can just, you're done. Sign a piece of paper and then split your money up and you're good. Okay, well, what's the point of getting married? So that you can pledge your stuff for a few years to somebody else? Why do that? Yeah. It's meaningless.
Yeah. A lot of men, I think, ask that because they're like, oh, I'm basically just agreeing to give someone money who will take it if they divorce me. And it's like, whoa, what about all of the other good things about marriage, which I think it's mostly for the children. It's to create an environment where they have two parents in the home. Of course, that's not always the case. Great people, that's, they didn't have that situation. But I do think in general, that's what you want to strive towards. And I think the left wants to destroy that. They want to take kids from their parents, send them into woke schools, teach them things saying, hey, here's why you should hate your parents. Here's why, your parents are crazy and all this stuff. So no matter what, they want to kind of change the whole dynamic of society, which I do think goes back to the home.
Yep. Yeah. Without family, kids are more likely to drop out of school. They're more likely, at this point, maybe it's not a bad thing.
Yeah, with two parents working, who's going to raise the children? The state. You also lower working wages. You also increase the tax base. And this is why there's a theory out there that a lot of this, was started because of Edward Bernays and robber barons and the Rothschilds that were pushing a lot of these ideas forward in order to make sure that at the end of the day, they had a system that benefited them, and they were able to control society even more.
Yeah, at this point, it's if the parents aren't there, it's not even the state really that's functionally raising them. It's the corporation. It's the television. It's Disney. It's Microsoft if they're on the computer.
It's Facebook and Twitter, and who controls Facebook and Twitter? The federal government.
I would like
with
to
the
know
DHS,
the answer to that.
and they're dictating what people see in the algorithms, and they're dictating who has a voice and doesn't have a voice. The multinational corporations are in bed with the government and with the big banks here. So at the end of the day, it's still the same interests controlling and shaping the minds of the children, as two parents have to work and leave their children with cell phones in their hands, or some nanny that doesn't care about them, or some state institution that indoctrinates them to be essentially a good worker.
I really support liberalism in the sense of like classical, like we're becoming more free in our society. We have more liberal arts. We're able to sing in public. We're able to insult our government. We're able to vote for who we want in charge. But it's getting to the point now where it's becoming transhumanist, and this excessively liberal agenda being like, you can be whatever you want, you can do whatever you want. People are cutting themselves, they're cutting parts of themselves off to become what they want to become, and it's like this is toxic liberalism. I think in a sense.
There's an individual who identifies as a paraplegic woman. He's biologically male. Yeah. And he identifies, I think this is in Norway.
It's Norway, yes.
He identifies as a paraplegic woman. So even though his legs work, he gets in a wheelchair and then says he's a disabled woman. That's his identity, and you have to respect it. Mm-hmm. At a certain point, we have to start asking questions of what are the limits of identity? If someone says they're disabled but they're not, can they claim disabled benefits? Like that's where we're going. Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.